أهلا وسهلا متابعينا، حلقة جديدة من برنامج شرايها عليا، ونتكلم اليوم مرة ثانية عن السرطان وعلاج السرطان بالطب البديل. معاي دكتور السرطان المعالج بالطب البديل دكتور توماس لودي. تكلمنا في حلقات كثيرة في السابق عن مواضيع كثيرة، كل الحلقات مترجمة، والترجمة تحصلون عليها في الإعدادات للفيديو نفسه على يوتيوب، فتضغطون الإعدادات وتطلعون الترجمة. Thank you very much, Dr. Lodi, for coming again with us. We have had a lot of episodes where we've spoke about a lot of different topics regarding alternative healing for cancer. But for this specific episode, I would like to discuss with you the topic of cancer with specific deficiencies, like the relationship of cancer with certain mineral or vitamin deficiencies. Because we are growing up now in communities where the soil is deficient, the food is deficient, fast food is deficient. So even if you're trying to eat healthy, you won't necessarily get, even from a salad, all the minerals and vitamins that you're looking at. And I'm presented with a lot of people who go for blood tests and come back with a lot of mineral deficiencies and maybe amino acid deficiencies and things like that. So I want to highlight maybe a few of the main deficiencies that you feel present most commonly with cancer. And I know cancer is a big topic, but in general, what deficiencies do you see? Do you see, like you hear a lot about vitamin D deficiency, but does iron play a role? I don't know. I mean, I'd love for you to shed some light on this.
Sure. Well, yeah. Okay, well, yeah. Vitamin D, it's interesting that it's even called a vitamin. It's really more like a hormone.
Yeah.
And it gets, it's activated by sunlight, and it depends on cholesterol and all that sort of thing. So, yeah, very important. And for anti-cancer, to really fight cancer, because one of the things that vitamin D does is when it actually turns off the process of cancer. When cancer has it, cells lose what they're called their differentiation. The cell is distinguished now as a liver cell, not a heart cell. It's not a bone cell. It's a liver cell. So you look at it under a microscope. Aha, that's liver. You know for sure. Well, when it starts to lose that distinction, loses differentiation, is part of the process of cancer. Well, vitamin D turns that, redifferentiates it. So it's really good in that regard. Vitamin D also, the binding protein that's needed for vitamin D, is actually part of the whole GC-MUF molecule that turns on and activates macrophages. And macrophages are a very important cell in the whole process to fight cancer. So they're and other things, but very, very important. And vitamin D does many other things. So yes, and it's interesting. It doesn't matter. I used to think it was only people who came from like London and Northern Europe who did that. But I'm seeing it everywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter. Here in Thailand, where people are in the sun all the time, it's just real. So I think part of it is not only the sun exposure, but the fact that we have so many hormone disruptors in the environment. Like for example, since vitamin D is derived from cholesterol, what's going on with that? Cholesterol must go through a certain wind up with vitamin D, etc.
Can you repeat that? I think you cut off. Could you say that again about cholesterol? It cut off for a bit.
Yeah, cholesterol has to go through a few different enzymatic steps in order to become vitamin D, and it's activated by light. But those steps can be blocked by drinking out of plastic bottles, eating plastics, and getting exposed to non-organic foods and stuff like that. There are what we call hormone disruptors that are everywhere. Even the receipt. You get a receipt, one of those curling receipts. It's got BPA on it, bisphenol A on it. So it's like everywhere. So anyway, so there's hormone disruptors in that. We find that everybody across the board, everybody from several decades ago till now is deficient in vitamin A. Okay.
Well, let me go back to the vitamin D issue for a second. If it is a hormone, there's a lot of controversy today about supplementing vitamin D and how the supplementing of a hormone could interfere with liver function, etc. What is your opinion on that? I mean, where do you stand on that?
Yes. Well, I think the problem I have seen with causing any liver toxicity has to do with usually vitamin A. But vitamin A in its pure form, too much can be hepatotoxic, can be toxic to the liver. So usually when they get the vitamin D, they get it from the liver of fish or other, and they're getting it mixed. It's not a pure vitamin D. But pure vitamin D doesn't produce any toxicity. I take about 30,000 units a day.
Of vitamin D supplements?
Yeah, D3.
Okay.
And I get it from lanolin. Lanolin is from the oil from the wool of a sheep.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you're not harming the animal either. You're just shaving it.
Yeah.
But anyway, anywhere above 70 is protective from cancer. So I usually check mine every few months, and I am anywhere from 100 to 110. I never go too high, but and that's what I do with everybody. I get everyone up to there. So I don't worry about that toxicity. I mean, the benefits are profound. So now, I think it's combined with vitamin A is what happens. Because vitamin A can be toxic. Now, the other thing that's interesting is that almost everybody, if not everybody with cancer, has low intracellular, tissue vitamin A. It's just not there. That's one of the reasons that Gerson used carrot juice. He chose carrot juice was to get it's a bioavailable form of vitamin A. But the problem with carrot juice is it's riding in a train of sugar. So you're getting a lot of sugar with that vitamin A. So we supplement with vitamin A. Sometimes we give shots of vitamin A, shots of vitamin D, so people don't have to take pills all the time. There's a Dr. Kobayashi in Japan who gives everybody 50,000 units of vitamin A every week as an injection. So those are the
and that's a lot, because that would also be arguably heavy on the liver.
Right. That's a lot, but it's in these cases we're talking about really deficiency states. It's kind of like when you look at vitamin C. When we look at the amount that our cousins in the jungle that like the gorillas and the chimps and the other primates, they eat 10 to 20 times more fresh vegetables and fruits per day. Yeah. Right? So for them, that's just to keep up your metabolic state. So basically, it's been said that the vast majority of humans walk around in a state of what we would call
scurvy, basically.
Subclinical scurvy.
Yeah.
We don't have the full-on symptoms of bleeding gums, etc., but we basically have scurvy. So what we do with people, so when we're using therapeutic, when we want to give people high doses of vitamin C, so here's an example. Let's say I have 3 people, I give them each 50,000 milligrams of vitamin C. How come this person's plasma level is 220, this one is 330, and this one is 5? Why? I gave them all the same amount. Because their adrenal glands need vitamin C, and the rest of their body needs it. So before you can start getting elevated levels in your plasma, you have to fill up all the deficits, right? So what I advise people to do is to take 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C 3-4 times a day, just to establish a baseline to fill up your basic vitamin C requirements. Then when we give them the IV, we can achieve therapeutic levels easier.
And
right?
we're talking about cancer patients, right? Or everyone in general.
Everyone. And the way
as protection as well, like prevention.
Yes. Right, and I'm not sure if everyone's heard of you take vitamin C to bowel tolerance.
Yeah.
But the way it works is if you can get the pure powdered vitamin C, or you can just take capsules if you want. But let's say you take 2,000, 3,000, or if you take a teaspoon of powder, 5,000 milligrams, every 30 minutes until you get diarrhea. When you get diarrhea, you've reached your bowel tolerance, your threshold. In other words, your body won't absorb any more than that. Yeah. Okay, now, so let's say it turns out to be 10,000 milligrams causes you to have diarrhea. So that means beginning tomorrow, you'll take 8,000 in divided doses throughout the day. Yeah. Instead of every half hour, you might take 2, 2, 2, 2 like that. So you figure, now it's interesting. Now you catch the flu, you get really sick, you'll find out your bowel tolerance is now up to 15,000 milligrams.
Yeah.
So your bowel tolerance changes depending on your needs. So it's like that with everything. So vitamin C is another one. It's important. It's another one because vitamin C is necessary for everything. So, but certainly with cancer.
And it's an anti-inflammatory as well, right? Because I mean, inflammation is kind of the basis of many cancers as well.
Right. And then let me just do one other one. Selenium. Selenium is necessary for, well, it's the cofactor involved in glutathione. That's in the cytoplasmic glutathione.
Yeah.
So it's very, very important. We know that there are places in China where they have no selenium with a very high rate of cancer. So it's really, and we know that since 1920 in the U.S., the soils have been depleted of selenium.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's the deficiency of the soil as well, which is not giving us much selenium.
Exactly. So therefore, you've got to be able, so when you have an organic farmer, it can't be just that they're not putting in chemicals. Yes. It's got to be that they're putting in mineral-rich soil, right? So if you have a healthy Brazil nut, 4 Brazil nuts a day should give you 200 micrograms of selenium. Which
assuming it was grown in
exactly.
rich soil.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But those are them, yeah.
So basically you're talking about the main antioxidants that people should be looking at. And have you had cases where it was just as simple as that, like maybe a stage 1 or stage 2 cancer, where just a simple rectifying of a deficiency reversed the cancer?
Well, I mean, I'll never know because I never do just one thing with anybody. I always take it very seriously, and I do everything I possibly can. So I've changed their diet. I've done some cleansing. They're getting definitely all the minerals. I just, you can't. I mean, if I were to look for the one thing and try to find it, so I don't know the answer to that question. But I know that I've had many people with stage 1 and 2 and even 3 that merely by changing diet, but they're cured. One thing goes back to another discussion we had at one point which had to do with faith, and I wanted to just give an example of this. And I had a woman who was advanced stage 4 breast cancer. Her lungs were completely filled with cancer. She was on a respirator. She came to my office on a gurney. She was just told she had 3 weeks to live. When I walked up to her, she grabbed my arm and she said, "Thank God, now I know I'm going to make it." 8 weeks later, she was jogging to our clinic. 8 years later, we got a postcard from Paris.
Oh,
so,
wow.
And that is why she knew it. She knew it. But anyway, I wanted to just bring that in. I forgot about it, but I just want that faith can almost override everything. But it's got to be real. She didn't believe she was going to make it. She knew she was going to make it. So, it's her faith. But anyway, selenium and all these things. So what I do with people is I want to instill in them that same faith. And faith comes from knowledge. When you know how the body works, wow, we make 2 to 3 million new cells per second. I have a new liver every 6 months. I have new skin every 6 weeks. What? You mean I'm not a thing that happened? I'm a happening? So therefore I can change it. Yeah. When people know that, they get better. But yes, selenium, vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, and then a zinc. If you don't have enough zinc, that means you have too much copper. Copper stimulates blood vessel, what they call neovascularization, which stimulates tumors to grow. You've got to have more zinc to offset the copper. There's a lot of things that go into it.
What about the oxygenation, the enough oxygen going around into the blood? Because I know in this part of the world, at least, I don't know about where you are, there's a lot of ferritin deficiency. And we're not talking about hemoglobin, we're talking about the carrier. And I feel that the long-term effect of that is just a deoxygenation of the whole body, which means your cells are not breathing, basically, and how that plays into the cancer buildup.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and ferritin is a storage molecule for iron, and iron is the necessary for hemoglobin, which is the carrier molecule of oxygen to be delivered to the cells. So, yeah, that's important. The chronic loss, the chronic bleeding, even if it's not, you don't have any obvious blood coming out anywhere that you're seeing, but you can have a low hemoglobin. The other thing, another big deal is having enough stomach acid. If you don't have enough stomach acid, you won't be able to absorb the iron, no matter how, even if you're drinking pure blood, you're not going to, you can be Dracula and you still won't have enough iron because you don't have the right, it's not being turned into the type of iron that you can absorb. So we have to have enough stomach acid. So digestion has to be in place.
So what would you do in the cases of iron or even low ferritin? Would you increase the stomach acid and then hope that the diet will be better absorbed, the iron in the diet will be better absorbed, or give intravenously, or supplements, or spirulina? I mean, where do you
depends on the situation, how low it is, and all that sort of thing. And if I can identify any source of potential bleeding, we do tests to make sure it's not in the stool, etc. And then you look at the parameters on the CBC, and you got to see if everything else goes along with the low iron, low ferritin. But a ferritin to iron ratio is a very important ratio with cancer as well. Anyway, now one other thing with oxygen delivery that's not really well known, and I recommend a particular book that I think everyone should read, and it's called PEO, Parent Essential Oils. Mm-hmm. Okay, by Dr. Rowan and Dr. Peskin. One's a PhD, one's an MD. And it's interesting. One is a meat eater and one is a raw vegan.
Okay.
So each chapter, they agree on what they're talking about in terms of oils, but they disagree on the way to get it. So it's in that sense, it's so biased, it's unbiased because it's biased on both sides, right?
Yes,
so it's But Parent Essential Oils is talking about not the oil derivatives, not the arachidonic acid and the EPO and the DHA. We're not talking about those. We're talking about the parent oils, omega-3s and 6s. And so it turns out that omega-6 is to oxygen what insulin is to glucose. Without insulin, the glucose cannot get in the cell. Without the appropriate number of omega-6s in the membrane, you can't transport oxygen into the cell.
Okay.
So you could be a big time exercise person and live near the beach and you're breathing oxygen and all that sort of thing, and you have a low omega-6s, you're going to be in trouble. Because we always think omega-6s are bad, omega-3s are good, etc. Yeah. Again, estrogen's not good, progesterone's not good. They both need to be in balance. But when we look at certain tissues of the body, some of them are predominantly omega-6, like skin is almost all omega-6. Anyway, it's a very, very important read. And it's got all the research, it's all the data. It kind of ends the debate. You will never, ever recommend fish oil to a friend again. Maybe to an enemy, but not to a friend.
That's an interesting argument. Okay, so tell us about the HCl. I know HCl reduces with age. It reduces with stress the stomach acid that's needed to, let's say, increase absorption of nutrients in our food. How would you recommend, for a cancer patient or not, or just as preventative, how would you recommend someone increase their HCl levels just so they make sure they absorb better in general?
Yeah, because the old way of diagnosing it was called the Heidelberg test, where they'd actually put something in through your nose, and you'd swallow it, and then they would measure the pH of your stomach. Not a lot of fun, and really not necessary. But what we have come to know is that by the time you hit around the age of 40, you become what's called different degrees of achlorhydria, that's what they call it. Okay, so you're not producing enough stomach acid. The pH of your stomach needs to be around 1 or 1.5. It needs to be very, very low. And what it does is it basically takes ferric and turns it into ferrous, cupric. So in other words, it puts the iron in a condition where it is absorbable. Otherwise, it's got too much of a positive charge, and it can't get through the positive lining of the gut. So anyway, what do? Instead of using all this equipment and all that sort of thing, what I say is you take, depending on, let's say you're otherwise healthy person, and you're like 35, you want to know if you need any or not. You take a capsule, get the regular over-the-counter, good Pepsin HCl, they call it. Take one capsule, 15 minutes before you eat. If you don't feel anything, the next time before you eat, take 2 capsules. And this applies to anybody. And then you don't feel anything, the next time you take 3. Now, if on the time you take 3, you notice that you start to feel a little bit warm inside, and you took a little too much. You go back to 2. Mm-hmm. So the way you can adjust is you take it 15 minutes before meal. If you don't get any like warm or almost slight burn, then you're okay. So you find the point. Now with me it's 2. I can't take 3, but I can take 2. So I take 2 for a minute. Not every meal, but a meal that's going to be like a lot of salad and all that. You're right, because vegetables, green vegetables, are going to all have not only magnesium but calcium and iron and all sorts of stuff in it. You want to be able to absorb them all. So that's how I supplement with it, and that's what I'd recommend everybody.
What about vinegar? Like doing like a diluted vinegar drink before meals or with a meal?
Right. Remember, it's acetic acid. It doesn't go anywhere near the pH you want.
Yeah. You need something more acidic than that.
Yeah. I mean, a pH of 1, if you would take the skin off your fingers if you put your finger in it. So.
Yeah, so it has to be a lot lower than that. And is that something feasible for life? Like, let's say you start at 40 and you just continue taking HCl tablets?
Sure, because you're not gonna. It's not like you're gonna. You're not. It's not like a hormonal system where you can cause a situation where your stomach stops making it.
Yeah.
Because the stimuli to produce hydrochloric acid is many, like proteins and there's other things that stimulate it. It's not just the presence of hydrochloric acid.
Yeah, and one assumes that you then work on the issues that reduced your hydrochloric acid as well in the first place, right? Because it reduced with age, but stress could reduce it, fear could reduce it. There's a lot of issues.
Exactly. Yeah, and then overeating and all that sort of thing. Yeah, you don't want to, because all of our GI systems, our gastrointestinal systems, are overworked. They become overworked and inefficient. So they produce too much acid, they produce too much enzymes. Now they can't do it as well. So.
Okay, one last question regarding deficiency. I'm curious which testing methods you prefer in terms of testing for minerals and vitamins. Obviously blood, but there's a lot of people that test hair today or test urine for just to check tissue levels rather than blood levels. What's your opinion on that?
I think the most reliable way to get tissue level, and the easiest, is, of course you could biopsy someone's skin and just see what you have, but the easiest way is to do a blood test and look at the red blood cells. They look at the membrane of the red blood cell. Here's an example of a cell, and you can just look at it's an RBC analysis. Yeah. If you're looking at the hair, not every mineral gets into the hair, it's in the hair root, right? If you're looking at the urine and you're looking, the plasma, it doesn't work. But the RBC mineral actually shows you the mineral content.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Dr. Lodi. I think it's good to have some biomarkers at least, or some incentive for people to start eating better, to improve their stomach health as well, just to start breaking things down in order to prevent, not only just cure. So thank you for that. We'll wait for questions from our viewers. Put your comment below regarding this topic or any other topic. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say one thing. There's a great adage that goes, that which is required to be restored to health, the same is required to maintain health.
Yes.
Which is just basically what you said.
It's very accurate. Yes, I love that saying, actually. Very nice. So basically, you don't wait until you get it and then heal it. Prevent it, and that would be the healing, ongoing healing. Yeah. Thank you for that. شكرا لمتابعتكم. حطوا لنا أسئلتكم عن هالموضوع أو أي موضوع آخر يتعلق بالسرطان، وبناخذ إن شاء الله أفكار الحلقات القادمة من الأسئلة مالتكم. شكرا لمتابعتكم، ولا تنسون تشتركون في القناة أيضا عشان توصلكم الحلقات أول بأول. شكرا.